packet? Everyone get a packet? So one of the cool things about teaching here is I get to be inspired by all of you on a regular basis. I've been teaching here for many years, and every week I get something new to work on, so I really appreciate it. So thank you, everybody. And this is kind of a process for me. Every so often I get inspired by Bach violin studies, and back when I was studying with Fred, he told me that Jim Hall used to give all his students Bach violin studies to play, but to arrange them as if Bach wrote them for jazz guitar. And so I wanted to talk about some of those options real quick. So here's this scale idea. So it just goes like this. If you're typically sight reading this in so that's just in one scale shape kind of mentality, like the typical sight reading would be kind of in one scale shape. But you can try to look for notes to sustain. Think of it like a chord. Think of try to make chords, like glue your fingers to the fingerboard. So here's another idea. You can take that same group of notes, but instead of playing it like this, go. So you got a chord there, and then. So you've got an extra bit of richness to your playing, and you can actually use that when you're comping or when you're soloing. It kind of makes your sound fuller when you're doing single lines, and it's helpful for trio playing. I personally think that John Scofield plays kind of like this, and he in interviews he said he quote stole everything from Jim Hall. So this is one of those things. Hey, I wonder if this is from that, you know. And if you look at the bottom of that same page, you can take those same lines and play them as chords. Now, another guitar player that swore they stole everything from Jim Hall, who I have heard he did these Bach violin studies because of Jim Hall, is Bill Frisell. And he incorporates a lot more open strings in his playing, just normal playing. And you can take that same idea and use a bunch of open strings with it. So now you've got this really complex chord ringing out. So you've got all 6 strings ringing by the end of it. So this is kind of a struggle. Interpreting Bach like this, it takes a lot of effort, and but I think it's really helpful, really fruitful to work things out. You can get better at comping, and your soloing will be more interesting. But also you'll be a better sight reader, because everything you do will be planning ahead. And the best sight readers know how to look ahead and read chunks of notes rather than one note at a time. So if you turn to the next page, you can see this part of the A minor allegro, where I've actually written them out as chords. And there's a lot of Bach's music that has like very chordal structure. I should have used my third finger instead of what was my intuitive choice of my pinky, because then I couldn't play that chord that I wanted to. So, but let me try it again without messing up. Does that make sense? So you're kind of doing a planning ahead fingering. And if you go to the next one, I should mention this chord right here, where I'm sustaining the 3 and jazz guitar player, I like that sound. As a classical, player, that would probably be wrong. I mean, I know that there's something called campanella lines, where they do those, like it's a Renaissance thing, where they have these suspensions that are rubbing against each other. I think it sounds great. I think it sounds cool. And you can use that in your in your lines when you're comping. What's a like 251A? Sounds fine as a jazz guitar. Anyway, let's move over to the part of the G minor Presto. Most of them are obvious chords, like these arpeggios. You can do this. You plan ahead with this shape, and then I think I wrote in the third finger. You want to make sure you get all that stuff ringing out, and then now I like that chord. That's probably something that may not be intuitive, but if you plan ahead, you can do that. I like that half step. And how you can play that G minor so many different ways. You can play it like this, or this. But it depends on where you're going next. So when you figure out the fingerings of this, make sure you have a pencil, not a pen. And lots of erasers, because you're going to go back and it's like, oh man, I want to do that, but I can't do that if I'm doing that, so I got to change that. And anyway, there's a lot of revision. It's a process. And then that sounds like a Johnny Smith chord voicings, and then you have these other chords that Bach didn't intend. If you want to sustain like the 3 and the 4 together, which I love. Anyway, that kind of stuff. You can see how it sends you all over the neck, not just in your favorite sight reading position. Let's go to the next one. This is the Saraband double, and I actually wrote it out as chords here. So instead of this, now I wrote it as chords, so you can actually practice like visualizing what those shapes would be. Take on how one would arrange this for guitar. It's like you're looking at it like trying to make jazz chords out of it. So if you look at, so there's 2 pages of this one, which is written in chords, and then the next 2 pages is the single line version. Now I wrote tab because that's kind of what the market wants. I actually was approached by Premier Guitar Magazine to do a lesson on this, and so this is kind of a result of my work for Premier Guitar Magazine. So I don't mean to insult you guys by giving you tab, but actually I kind of get it. Tab tells you exactly where to put your fingers, and this stuff is very fingering specific. So I'm not terribly opposed to tab in this sense. I know that in standard notation there is a lot of information you can put on the sheet to make sure you're playing it in the right place and stuff like that. But really, I want you guys to arrange it on your own, like the process of working it out to where you have an arrangement that you're proud of. That's what's going to make you a better guitar player. Not necessarily learning my version, but you can learn my version just to kind of get the concept. Look at the this part is my favorite. The last line of that first page. I love this. It's just cool. So you can feel, if you find some shapes that you really like man, I want to put those in my bag. So it's like, how many of you practice diminished triads? I never have. I used to never practice diminished all of them there. You can, those, you got this one. So I've got this one. By half steps. Could be, you can play it like that, or you can do it like a chord. You know, you're finding opportunities rather than pain in the butt stuff. Anyway. All right, so this same one, the B minor saraband, it's very clearly, the chords are structured by 3 notes at a time. You know, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That's sort of the harmonic rhythm of this piece. But just as an experiment, I thought, hey, what happens if I draw a different box? No, different box around 4 notes instead of 3, and I came up with these different chords, and kind of turned out pretty well. And it's going to be a tune. We're going to play that. The tune is called Stolen Idea. It's the saraband double excerpt. So if you do, I mean, that sounds like really modern chords, you know. Here's the cool one. So all the same notes Bach wrote, I can do them in the same order. Favorite part here, this one? I did it to that too, so it becomes this. Anyway, try again. This is, I just called it Stolen Idea, because when you borrow an idea, it still belongs to that other person, but it doesn't anymore. You only know it's Bach because I told you. So I'm thinking.
Those are the 8th notes?
Yeah, those are the 8th notes. Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you.